military occupation of non-industrialized regions for the sole purpose of exploiting raw materials. It had as its objective the extension of sovereignty beyond the borders of the nation-state, which resulted in the political and territorial assimilation and subordination of these other nations and peoples. The state becomes a nation. From the nation springs nationalism, and from this nationalism a struggle emerges between the great industrialized powers over the division and control of colonies. Globalization is different. It was born out of the necessity of regaining control over social conflict, which, since the 70s, has caused the European and American economies to restructure their apparatus of production by decentralizing and becoming less territorial, and progressively incorporating the entire world. The power of the nation-state is, fortunately, diminished. Capitalism is forced to leave a sphere within national borders in which it felt safe, to head into a sphere which is more complex, unpredictable, pliable and insecure. This sphere is the international market, where there are no uncertain landmarks, no centre and no periphery. The object is the governance and control of the network of production on the entire planet. This is not the objective of a single state or group of states, but of the multinational corporations which act to control capital in the world regardless of territorial interest. This becomes very clear when we look at the war in Iraq through the actions of the United States. The United States attempted, according to traditional colonial logic and unilaterally, to be imperialist. However, it must accept, as it is now doing, that its political and military decisions depend upon the global economy, which thus requires multilateralism. The United States must accept being part of what Antonio Negri and Michael Hart define as an empire, i.e., a new structural form of exploitation, in which power and command are organized indirectly by multinational corporations. In this sense, there is no longer such a thing as first, second and third worlds, even though conflicts and differences have not diminished. The divisions basically are no longer asymmetric, divided between an industrialized north and an underdeveloped south, between the economic systems of the West and the economic systems of the East, or between a rich state and a poor state. The new divisions are vertical and horizontal, between those who find themselves at the higher levels and in command, and those who are at the lower levels and are subjugated. It is between those interested in conquering living spaces, the domains of the body, love, diversity and peace, and those who control hegemony, even with war, and make themselves despots within a Manichean view of the world. In this situation, the large former nations of the second and third world, and particularly Asian nations, with their enormous populations, experience a massive shift in demographic. In a short period of time, hundreds of millions of men, women, old people, and children move towards old and new nodes of production, giving rise to the phenomenon of the megalopolis, monstrous urban transformations of immense dimensions, difficult, if not impossible, to manage. Millions of living quarters spring up like mushrooms to give shelter to the multitudes these cities attract. Many traditional neighborhoods are razed, and within a few years, massive groups of skyscrapers take their place. On their top floors, intellectual labor. The lower floors are for the working class, and the extremely poor are relegated to slums. And so we see the problems of the masses living in Beijing or Shanghai are the same as those of the masses living in Paris, Milan, New Delhi, San Francisco, Cairo, Mexico City, and Sao Paulo. To cite just a few of these huge metropolises, this is how we encounter parts of the third world in the first world, and parts of the first world in the third world. Multitudes are not tied to their territory either. They are flexible, economically malleable, and especially mobile. On the one hand, we witness massive migration within the same cultural and geographic context, from the rural areas to the industrial areas. And on the other hand, we witness a continuous exodus, multi-directional and multicultural, of intellectual work as well as manual labour, regardless of the historic boundaries of nations. In this situation, globalization allows, across physical borders, the international organization of the fight for the needs of the people. The international is potentially and objectively possible. There is nothing left other than to organize it, subjectively. However, some may object, referring back to Hobbes's social contract, homo homini lupus. This would mean that any ethic of liberation is anthropologically impossible. If this were the case, and here I speak from the point of view of a European citizen of a state such as Germany, which is historically highly industrialized, my right to knowledge, information, health, expression, understanding and basically to surviving and living physically and intellectually with a certain amount of dignity may be considered the same as that of an ancient slave, or of an individual under Stalinist and fascist rule, or of an individual who is completely subjugated by the exploits of capital, a person who is not yet aware of a mature social, political or cultural struggle. It is clear that man has grown anthropologically over the course of evolutionary history. The new non-material work, the general intellect, produces, if associated with venal profit rules, alienation. But, at the same time, it can generate an influx of knowledge. It can be an entity which forms conscience, and as a result, a life of alternatives. The possibility to globally organize the common need for a different existence, the imminent need to rediscover true being, indicates today that liberation is anthropologically possible.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Now the elevator at a speed of 7 meters per second is taking you to the atmosphere at 263 meters high. Hope you have a good time here. Thank you.